McBeth signs a 10-year contract for $10 million. Let's talk about it. What's up, guys? It's Wild Runs here, and today we're going to be talking about potentially the biggest news of the year. Paul McBeth signs a $10 million deal with Discraft for 10 years. So I find this super interesting for a multitude of reasons. Basically, I'm just going to be giving my hot take for this video. I don't really want to dive too deep into the logistics of this. Just going to kind of give my opinion for why I think this happened and who this benefits. All right. So first off, I guess I'm not too surprised that Discraft is trying their absolute hardest to maintain a good relationship with Paul, because obviously he is the head of the sport. He's going to drive the most amount of sales. Brody's not doing that, even though he's selling a lot. It's definitely Paul. Everything that he has for signature disc sells out like crazy. He has so much say in the industry that just having his name on any manufacturer will drive so much sales. If this was Innova, they would be making so much money off of McBeth's merchandise. So first off, I think this is a huge win for Discraft. Obviously, $10 million is potentially more income than they're going to make in the next 2 to 3 years combined. Just guessing. But the amount of trust that they have in Paul is crazy. I think this is clearly evident that they do see him as being the figurehead of the company, which is obviously kind of in line with what I've said before, where I think Ezra and I think Yuli and a couple of the other people at Discraft, they will not get the push that Paul gets. I think their value at the company is diminished tremendously when they won't get probably a lot of bonuses and really much of a social media push, just because so much of their efforts is designated just to McBeth. So I think obviously this is a great thing for Paul, a great thing for Discraft, but everyone else I think is kind of losing out on this. But so as far as what I think of this deal for just Paul, I think this is the most well-timed deal he could have made. I think his career is on the decline. I see him being not washed up, but not nearly as good as he once was. And I base that off of obviously the tremendous boost in competitiveness year by year. I think 2020 was evident that Paul is just not the same person he was before. Sure, he can win tournaments, but he's winning at most 3 and probably not even 2. He's probably going to win 1 tournament this year. And I just don't foresee him being a mainstay in the sport anymore. He will just be one of the greats playing against other great players. I don't think he will do much for the sport after 4 or 5 years into this contract. I think the last 5 years will kind of be more of like a Philo role where he's in it. He's going to be doing all the tournaments, but it's more so just to be there and maybe snag a couple second place, third place, maybe a win every now and then. But primarily it's just kind of him being in the tournaments just because he's been doing good for so long. And obviously he's still relatively young compared to some people that are still playing tournaments like MJ. These older players don't have a ton of winning potential, but they're just been playing for so long that they're going to play well and they're probably going to cash. So they still register for these tournaments. So I see this as just so much indication that I was correct for Discraft and how they will primarily focus their entire efforts on Paige and Paul, which is totally fine. It's their prerogative. It's their company. They're going to do what they want. But if you are Ezra, if you are Brody, I would recommend you just really think through this contract, because I'm sure you'll not get the same boost that you would with MVP or really any other manufacturer besides Innova. So I think if you're Paul, this is the best deal you could have made. Obviously, he's got retirement money. He doesn't really need this contract, but this sets into motion all the things he wants to do. If he wants to pursue his own course, he has the funding now to do that. If he wants to just kind of chill for a little bit and maybe just play tournaments without practicing too much in the off season, he can do that. He's got a lot of ability to just kind of do whatever he wants. So good on him for that. But I think it's clearly evident, and I think his tournaments this year will prove that he will not be the same player he once was before. I think there's just too many people playing that are just honestly better. I think Calvin's a better player. I think Ricky can be a better player. I think Kevin is a better player on his good days. So I just don't foresee him winning much this year. And I think that is why he was so eager to sign this contract, is because he probably sees it in himself when he's practicing that he's just not the same person he was before. And I know he's competitive. I know he just won the exhibition match over the weekend. And so good on him for that. But I'm just pretty positive this was almost a desperation play, but not really desperation in the sense that he needed this, but he knew his career, if it was a bell curve, is on the decline. So focalizing this end of his career with a 10-year contract is perfect for him, because it sets him up so nicely to end his career in 10 years, because I think his realistic potential of winning worlds is done in the next 5 years. So really just capitalizing on his end and making sure that him and Hannah will be set for life when this all ends, because I don't foresee him doing any commentaries. He's not going to do any post-production. He just wants to play. And so I think that totally makes sense. But if you're on the outside looking in, I think it's safe to say that this is a way for Paul to retire, but not really retire. And I think this is probably a good indication for the sport. If you do have a company that's willing to put down this much money, which, I mean, 10 million isn't that much compared to like any other professional athlete. And if you're the best in the sport, 10 million really is nothing. But still, comparative to what other players are getting currently, this is great. This kind of gives an amount of legitimacy to the sport. People starting out can see, oh my goodness, there is real money here. Obviously, if you're winning C tiers, you're not going to be making lots of money. It'll take a serious amount of time and commitment to get to even getting sponsored by Discraft or Innova. And even if you do get sponsored, you're still not making tons of money. You have to really be elite top 10 players to actually make a decent income. But if you are in that spot, then I do think you can make a livable wage and actually make a decent amount. And so I think this is good for the sport. I think this is probably a safety measure for Paul. I think this is part of his retirement plan, and it's not too surprising, I guess. What's more surprising is that Discraft is willing to put down the income for Paul because they trust in him so much and see him as such a valuable asset to the whole sport. And every marketing that they do is targeted around Paul. So it totally makes sense for this to happen. So really, really excited for Paul. Obviously, I dislike him because of his lack of charisma and his ability to not really see the fun in the sport. He only makes it competitive. But my bias aside, I'm really happy for him, and I hope this goes over well. I hope he lives a good long career. So with that, I want to know your guys' thoughts on this. Obviously, I probably sound like a little bit of a hater, but this is just my 2 cents. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Wild Runs, signing out. Peace.